the chairman of the Ward 1 Democratic Ward Committee. The Ward Committee is on the presidential ballot during the presidential primary, and in Ward 1 we elect 35 members, some of them of which are here, quite a few actually. And we basically represent the people of the ward at the convention, well, not the convention, but the caucuses. If they get elected to the convention, then they go to the convention. Other Democratic meetings to work on the charters for the state convention, state committee and everything else. So they're basically representing the people of Ward 1, right? So when we decided to do this, it didn't look like anybody was holding candidate sites, but since then everybody's jumped aboard. There's quite a few of them now, so these guys are going to be tired. But this one's going to be unique because we only have the 2 candidates for Ward 1, so we get plenty of time with our representative from our ward to hopefully get to know them, answer our questions so we can know what to expect from them, and basically tell them what we want. All right. So, yes.
So since you're from the Democratic Council, do we assume that both of the candidates are Democrats?
No, this is a non-partisan election.
It's a non-partisan election, but you can assume that they are because they are.
That'd be my first question.
It wouldn't have mattered. We would still have the candidates no matter what party they were in. Because we're here to find out who's going to represent us, not particularly what party they belong to. All right? So with that, Dave McCarthy and Joe Murphy are our candidates. One of these 2 are going to be our Ward 1 councilor on the city council. So we're going to, I talked to both of them. We're not, they've been around and you've heard this beginning spiel. So we're going to waive that and go right into the questions. And we flip the coin and Dave's going to get the first question. So you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. Probably not. Many in our ward are seniors, and many others don't have or use electronic devices. They don't use Facebook or Twitter or emails and have a hard time with flyers and letters left on their door handles. Explain how you think you will reach these people when the need arises.
I don't know if I need this or not. Is this loud? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's funny I get that first question because I'm not really a Facebook guy either. I started this year. I ran 2 years ago and didn't use Facebook. And everyone in my campaign yelled at me because I didn't like Facebook. But I'm a guy who likes to talk face to face, likes to have community meetings more than once a quarter, whatever I need to do. If it has to do with seniors in Ward 1, I'll do whatever I need to do to go out and talk to folks. Mailings, I know a lot of folks, the older folks will, like a letter, a personal letter for me on getting together to talk about issues. And I know they don't get onto Twitter and Facebook and things like that. So that's the way I would handle it. There'd be a lot of mailings out and making sure that they're included, make sure that I'm down here. And one of the biggest, I think, assets that I have is that I'd rather come and ring your doorbell and talk to you, or talk to you in this forum, than go on email or any of the social media. And I know it's necessary. I know it is somewhat necessary because people get on that and they do look for that, that sort of communication. But I would try to get down here and be in the ward as much as possible. One of the things too is to zero in on the seniors, particularly who they are, where they live, to zero in with a mailing and get to them. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, 1 minute.
Thanks. I would like to start by saying that I've enjoyed how Councilor LaForest has communicated via online with us, but the onus is on your representative to find the way to talk to you that works best for you. So what I promised in my campaign is I'm going to continue her tradition of online communication, but I'm also going to have weekly coffee hours, or I call them office hours, where I will bounce around the ward in various locations, and I will just set up shop with my paperwork, and anyone can come and talk to me face to face, because a lot of people prefer that. I would also continue, I was saying last week at the QCAN thing, we shouldn't just canvass and walk around our neighborhoods to get your vote. We should canvass and walk around our neighborhoods to serve you. So that's not something that I'm going to stop doing if elected. I'm going to be out and about and be a visual presence in the community, so I can reach everybody from young to old. Thanks.
All right, second question, we'll go to Joe first.
Joe,
Oh, does anybody in the audience have a question?
I do, but I don't mind waiting.
It's your turn.
Okay. Dave, on your flyer, you said that you would stop overdevelopment in Ward 1. And I would ask you both how you feel about it. What would you describe as overdevelopment?
Joe?
Want me to go?
Why don't Joe go first?
Whoever, go ahead.
Well, what I would describe as overdevelopment is projects that insult the integrity of settled neighborhoods. So if you have a street with single-family neighborhoods, maybe a dual family here and there, it doesn't make sense to me to tear down a couple houses and put up an apartment complex. Our streets aren't big enough for it, we can't handle the traffic, and it doesn't go with the integrity of the neighborhood. Ward 1's been pretty lucky. We've been pushing back against a lot of that, but we gotta stay vigilant on it. So when I say protect against overdevelopment, I'm not against development per se, I'm for smart development. There are certain parts of our city where we can put those types of projects. Basically, they need to go near public transportation, so people don't need to have a car to live in that community. A lot of these buildings going up now, we should consider having less parking if they're near a T station, so that we can get people riding the T and using ride sharing and stuff like that. But if you're gonna have an apartment complex go up away from those T stations, there needs to be adequate parking, there needs to be adequate street space for emergency vehicles, there needs to be shadow plans to make sure that we're not blocking people's gardens and stuff like that. I've been attending a lot of zoning board meetings the past year, and these are the things that come up every week, and as your city councilor, I would be at all of them, making sure our neighborhood is protected.
I'm gonna echo Joe's words a little bit. Being at the zoning board meetings over the past year or so, it seems like the variance is to let things happen 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 sometimes. And I know there's 2 pieces of property tonight on the zoning board agenda on Spring Street. And we all know Spring Street, pretty congested. One's on 54, which I think is down at the very end. They're trying to put in a large house that's not gonna fit the lot. And the other one's right next to Betty Byto's house, at 120. There's an empty lot there. And in both places, 10 years ago when we had a condo go up, or we saw townhouses go up, maybe even longer than that, we thought it was beautiful, hey, this is nice, they cleaned up the area. And now you're saying to yourself, it's got out of hand, at least I am. There was another project at 308 C Street on the corner of Wampatuck and C, right after you go through the lights at Broad Meadows. And that again, they went to try to put in a multifamily dwelling in there, and it just won't work. So we gotta keep an eye on it, as Joe said, and make sure we don't ruin the neighborhoods.
All right, so,
Joe just did the first one, you want to?
yeah, why don't you, it's the Dave.
Dave, over the years, questions on ethics in the city council come up. They refer to the state, and sometime in the future, many times after a term is over, the state responds. People would like to question the ethics of the seat of a council and their oversights of the monies. Many times these questions don't get asked because of the need to go to the state, most times never get fully vetted. It is a challenge for a voter to reach outside our community. These roadblocks keep our voters and citizens from having the best government and can reduce the voter turnout. would you be in favor of this, actually two questions here, would you be in favor of creating a city ordinance that addresses ethical issues that prohibit holding a city-funded job? Would you be in favor of an ethics committee to address ethics questions?
Ethics is in fact, in my line of work at General Dynamics, I'm the director of security for General Dynamics, and the ethics department has grown over the years in the private sector. So I would be in favor of any ethics violations or any ethics oversight hearings to happen immediately if there is a sense, or we get something from the public or something out of a meeting that there is a violation going on. Probably address it immediately and don't push it off. In regards to getting, it being addressed after the person has moved on, after the incident has moved on, unless we grab it right away and do something with it immediately to bring it up to oversight and talk about any type of ethics, we're gonna run into that all the time. And sometimes time isn't on our side if we can't come up with a decision. But I would be in favor of making sure we had a strong ethics program and an ethics presence on the council.
The first question on that was, would you be in favor of creating a city ordinance that addresses ethical issues that prohibit holding a city-funded job?
Yes, yes I would. There's different jobs that happen in the city over the years. Folks that I was with on the school committee that had jobs in the city, and you weren't sure whether it was right or wrong back then. As being a newbie to the school committee when I first came on, it seemed like it just kept going on and on and on until the person had moved on. So there were questions back then, but I would be in favor of that, John.
I would be in favor of that ordinance, and I would be in favor of stricter oversight in real time for ethical violations. If you are serving the city taxpayers, you have to be free of conflict of interest. And there have been times over the years where that's not been the case. I don't think people are bad by nature, but I think when you set the stage for, when you make it difficult for people to make decisions that don't benefit themselves, you need to be able to benefit just the people you're serving. And the easiest way to do that is to, in real time, stop these issues at the start. And that way we won't have to go back years later and revisit the issues after people are already out of office.
All right, so I hand in the, go ahead, Joe.
Yes, I would like to bring up the issue of fair housing. I wanted to cite an example that's fresh in mind. I have a friend who lives in the apartments directly across from the Dunkin' Donuts. She makes $47,000 a year working at a downtown hospital. She has type 1 diabetes, and she's 62 years old. And I recently started to do a little preliminary search for her. And of course, this is a national problem. I'm not suggesting that it's a Quincy problem, but the Quincy officials seem to have only recently acknowledged even the word fair housing. And I wonder what your positions are on that. Because this woman, she takes $400 a week home, and her rent is only $1,250. Then she has to buy gas, keep a car on the road, insure it, drive to work back and forth, go shopping. I don't know how she does it. Buy medical supplies. So those of us that are owners should, even though there are property tax increases, should be feeling blessed that we have lesser costs. So just the general position.
Well, this might come as no surprise to the people that know me best here, but I always think we can do more for people. And I would definitely think we can do more on a local level, state level, federal level, to help people who are struggling like that. Truth is, I think as a nation, sometimes we've kind of gotten away from worrying about our fellow man a little bit, and we always assume people are out to scam us or use our tax dollars, and they're working the system. But I would much rather help the vast majority of people who need it and who are doing things the right way and are trying to make their way and not worry about the few that are trying to take advantage of the system. So that's how I see these things. So I would support anything we could do locally, even if it's using local funds to help, especially seniors, people with disabilities, people who are struggling like that. And I wouldn't think twice about it. It would be a very easy decision for me.
Joe, just a quick question for you. You said you were out searching for a remedy in regards to
I was looking
relocating?
into it, talking to people in different housing agencies.
Yeah, no, I mean, that would be the first thing where, you know, Quincy's Housing Authority and Affordable Housing in Quincy with Jim Marathas, who's the new director of housing down there. The first thing I'd do with you or do with anybody would be try to go over and see if we could situate her or him or whoever we were talking about in regards to another location to help them out, money-wise, to help them out location-wise, also to get around a little bit better. There's a number of places in the city that I'd be more than willing to sit with you and talk about.
It is an interesting aside to note that she applied for the moorings, which is a lower income subsidy in back of the Dunkin' Donuts on the beach. And she was rejected because her income exceeded $41,000. So it was a flat out rejection according to federal standards. It's hard to believe that you'd be making $47,000 a year and be considered the working poor. So that's.
Right, and I know that happens at the moorings. I know there's a formula over there. I wasn't sure on how much you have to get to be qualified in there, but there's other options that I could help you with, Joe, and I'd be more than willing to do so.
Actually, we've had some of the candidates from other races drop by, and we got a few of them still here, but Mark Sutter was here earlier, he's running for school committee. David Jacobs is here now. On the council at large, Ann Mahoney was just here 2 seconds. Oh, caught her in the ladies' room. Dan Ramondi poked his head in, and I know there's quite a few things going on tonight, so, Noel Devon is here. There's Dan. And Ann.
Thanks for the conversation.
Good and strong?
No, it's great.
All right, so, that last one came from the audience, so we want to do one of those?
We have many traffic problems in Ward 1. Many are because our ward is part of the route to Boston. Many because of our own needs. C Street around Moffett Road every weekday morning, the middle school with parents wishing to turn left to drop off their children, and a busy morning coffee run at Dunkin' Donuts causes the right-hand lane to be blocked or jammed. Sometimes a backup for the drive-up window blocks both lanes. What do you think can be done for those 1 or 2 hours around commuting and school hours?
Well, Dunkin' Donuts was my favorite spot on Saturday morning, so I'm very familiar with this whole thing. So is Ginger Betty's, so I think I'm broken in on C Street pretty well, you know. I watched that Dunkin' Donuts in action, and I don't know how anybody can get in and out of there anyhow, just, you know, picking up their orders the way they operate. Paul Leary's a good friend of mine who runs it, but I'd like to have a conversation first with him too about some ideas. I know that, you know, he has people picking up orders left and right. They're all over the parking lot, and I think at the beginning when he started that Dunkin' Donuts, that outside lane that looks like it's a drive up but isn't anything. I'd like to talk to him about possibly turning that maybe into a pickup spot for those orders. People just coming in and getting in line and picking up and going. And I know they have, you know, he'll probably look at me, you know, like I got 6 heads, but that was a spectacle that went on down there. One of the concerns that I saw also, and I'm gonna take a page out of the Don Cussa show, is the bus stop that got moved too. You know, I mean, I don't like the idea, and I know why it got moved, There was a lot of congestion, a lot of people on the porches there of the folks' houses, but when that comes to, when you have the 216 or 214, they pull up and whatever in the morning and kids are coming back, you're just waiting for someone to come around the corner by the Hofbrau and plow into everybody, you know, it's a tough scene. Further up to Ginger Betty's, we have to do something. I know the intersection is on the agenda, it's been on the agenda forever, but we gotta cut that right lane open so they can go up the beach somehow on that no man's piece of land that either the state owns, or the guy owns, or the city owns. And I'd also look, Paul, as you mentioned, the busy hours. It gets busy at school time. Some of us are bad, but at 7 o'clock in the morning to 8, during school, that's when you need a detail to pull the traffic through the light. And you might need a detail up at the police station, but I'd look into that all the way up. I learned it pretty well this summer.
Well, I'm a twice-a-day visitor to that Dunkin' Donuts, and I also can tell you that I'm lucky to be here because it's been. What I would say is, I know the city's contemplating a traffic study that I think I read somewhere it's a few $1 million. I don't think we need a traffic study to tell us which intersections are busy. And so I would rather take some of that money, as Dave said, put it towards officer details, put it towards smart traffic lights. I would also want to do some infrastructure projects on the roads to make them more easily traversable by bike and walker. Because if we can get more people out and about, out of their cars, it'll help with congestion in those areas. But I say skip the study and go to real-time improvements.
Go ahead.
I have two unrelated questions. First off, there's this proposed marina, maritime thing down at the yacht club or in that area down there in the marina. That's being proposed to build, and I'm wondering if it's necessary, why are we spending money on that? And secondly, more directly towards where I live, there is in HouseNet from Winthrop and Rockland on C Street to the Willows, we have a drag strip. And I'd like to know what we can do about getting police enforcement there to keep these kids with their motorcycles and their hot rods from zooming. Somebody's going to get killed on in that section of the street because they just have no idea as to what they're doing down there. They use that as a starting gate. You know, I mean, I live two houses down there, so I know. I mean, I'm out there working on my front lawn. It's crazy. You know, we need. You know, I think the city could make a lot of money if they had a policeman stationed at Malvern or Newton just to catch these folks from you know, but we gotta have it enforced because they're speeding. It's not just 35 miles an hour, we're talking 50, 60 miles an hour. Well, anyway, and the marina, I'm curious about that.
Okay.
Why are we doing this?
Right, so when you asked two questions, so I'm going to answer the second one real quickly. You answered it yourself. We need increased enforcement, and we need it yesterday. And it's got to be regular, and it's got to be strict, and the message will get out. If you speed on C Street, you're going to get pulled over. And that's not happening enough now, and I agree with that. As to the marina, it looks beautiful, the artist rendition. It just seems like a wonderful thing, but as I've said throughout my campaign, I think it's a vanity project. I don't think we need a marina that size. I don't think we need to become a regional facility. I don't think we need a huge new structure where we buy up properties. I think we can fix the boat ramp so it's traversable at any tide level. I think we can fix the public landing rather. And I think we can do those things and maybe take some money to fix up the Maritime Center that's there now. That's what I want to do. Only because we have roads and sidewalks and water mains and sinkholes, and there's things that need to be done first. And as I said in one of my previous speeches, to me it's like putting in a man cave when you need a new roof, okay? So that's what I want to focus on. Let's get the bones of the city healthy, then we can start thinking about some luxury projects, because the city's 400 years old. Occasionally, it's going to need the new roof. And now's the time to invest in the bones of our city so that we can have, later on, we can do some of those nice things. So right now, I'm not for the scope of the Maritime Center as it sits.
Traffic enforcement. Last night I was knocking doors on Post Island Road, and across the street, they were set up with radar. And I think it's been happening a little more often because we talk about C Street a lot. In regards to like Newton and Malvern, right where they are, you know, they could hide right in the gas station and pull people over. Because it does, they get going. It's a tough street. You get going through the lights, you hit the lights at the right time at Adams Shore, and you can get going on that straightaway all the way down to the Willows. You slow down a little bit and you pick up again. So traffic enforcement, at least to the point where you can have people at least say this is a prime spot. They used to do it for years, up past Lady Good Counsel on the right at Barbara Terrace, and then they stopped a little bit, but I think we can get back on that. In regards to the Maritime Center, I saw the artist rendition, and I don't know about anybody else, but the artist renditions that I've seen over the years on a lot of things don't end up being the artist renditions. It looks tall. They told me it was 30 feet. I thought a lot about it. We had a community meeting up at Our Lady of Good Counsel, and I would be looking more in regards to something that would be 1 or 2 stories, possibly a lower level. I'm in favor of them taking the Maritime Center that's there down and fixing it. That has been there a long time. It was Hurley's boat rental. It has mold in the cellar. The police force is in there. They need something that's a little bit better. I don't want to see a Marina Bay or a regional approach. Diane Holler was nice enough to give me plenty of reports to read, and I went through them trying to make sure that there wasn't any regional, wasn't anything in there that we weren't seeing, and I've had discussions with the mayor, and I go right back and talk again. I think I want to downsize that a little bit, but I'd like to have something nice for the folks at the end of Ward 1 in that area. Sorry.
We had a similar question, but it addressed a little bit.
A little bit more detailed.
A little bit
The
different.
proposed regional maritime center and roadway widening will take or buy 3 homes by the Louise Parking Lot and dramatically increase truck traffic down C Street. This is proposed without any traffic report or impact study as required by any other similar project proposed in Quincy. Do you support, there's 2 questions again, do you support the city buying Louise Parking Lot? And the second question, do you support the regional maritime center project as proposed? And would you let the neighbors have input into any future project in our community?
I know I'm going to miss one of those questions,
I agree with
Johnson.
you.
Traffic study, the whole work should be done before we get into any widening of roads coming down or anything like that. And I know the sweet spots by the package store and in areas where it gets tight as they're coming through there with anything that's large. In regards to Louis, I thought about this. I know a lot of people have thought about this. Louis needs the parking lot. You know, I would petition, I think, to the zoning board, if I get elected, to leave it alone. Leave it as one parcel. Leave the parking lot with Louis. Let Louis have the parking lot. I know Louis wants to sell the parking lot, but I think they need it. In regards to if the city bought the parking lot, I don't think it comes into play as the end-all of solving all the problems with additional parking. The houses that you mentioned, John, in there, I know a few of them had spoken about in favor. I think Mike Coffey, who I know I grew up with down the end of the neck, he was a little bit older. I think he's got one of the houses and he wants to stay. I would relook the whole thing. Again, I'm kind of Monday morning quarterbacking it. I know I've talked to a lot of people in here, but if the houses, if everybody agreed, I think it would be a good thing for them to clean up the parking lot and organize it. Right now, you've got trailers, you've got guys going out for days, going out longer than days, and we'd have a little organization. I think one of the things I said early on if the Maritime Center, if we ever got there and it worked out, that during the summer months, they put someone on from the park and rec, a kid on from the park and rec to kind of organize the parking lot down there with people coming in the morning, put a kid to work, a Quincy kid, probably a Ward 1 kid, to kind of oversee the parking lot. So, that's my look on things right now, but I would really have to sit down and look at everything over again. Like I said, Diane was nice enough to give me a lot of literature. I know they want to move the boat ramp also, possibly to the other side, which I'd be against, on the other side of the Maritime Center now. I think it'd be too congested with the yacht club, too close, and I know the yacht club guys, at least Marty Akins has spoken to me a little bit, they weren't too happy about that move. So there's a lot of moves there that have to be looked at. But at the end all, I'd like to see Louise stay like it is, and I'd like to see something new, but nothing that turns into, Marina Bay.
Would you let the neighbors have input into any future project in our community?
Of course. I don't know why they don't have it now, to tell you the truth. One of the things that Joe had mentioned about having weekly meetings, I don't know if I could pull off weekly meetings, but, yeah, but, week and a half, every week and a half. But come down and talk to the people. I've been in enough of these meetings, these community meetings here, where I know the audience here, I know they love the end of the neck, I know they love the way everything operates. That was my neighborhood down there. I grew up on a hill and I ran all over the place, and I know the landscape, and I know how people were back when Harvey's and Hurley's was hopping, and that was a traffic issue and a half. I'm glad we're not talking about that. But yeah, community should be involved in everything. They should be involved in all the comments. It shouldn't just be done and then say, hey, here's what we're doing. It shouldn't be. I couldn't sleep with myself if I started pulling that stuff.
I need you to repeat.
Sure, you get a little extra if you want.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
I think you get the gist of the
I got the
question.
gist.
Do you support the city buying Louise Parking Lot? And do you support the Regional Maritime Center project as proposed? And would you let the neighbors have input into any future projects in our community?
Okay, so I've already spoken that I think the Maritime project's too big. That remains true. The Louise Parking Lot is Hal's Neck's favorite controversy, and it's been sketchy from the beginning. They keep changing the stories, goalposts keep moving. I'm not really sure what to say here, except that no, I don't support buying the Louise Parking Lot. The zoning board in the 90s, in their wisdom, said these lots need to stay under common ownership. Whatever reason they had in the 90s is even more true today, okay? A restaurant should have the parking lot. It's not a residential, it's a residential area. If you take away that parking lot, then you're gonna have people clogging up streets and getting in front of driveways. It's not gonna be good. And I don't understand why the city would be interested in buying a parking lot to turn around and tell the restaurant to keep using it. One more thing I'll say is, one reason we've been told that this could happen is the China decision from 2011, the China sued in land court. China is a restaurant in North Quincy, for those who don't know. And they were able to get their limitations on parking removed, and so Councilor LaForest feels that that could set precedent for what we're dealing with now. The China situation was completely different than what we're talking about here. That is a commercial district. They have a 32 parking lot. They already had 32 existing parking lots. They were just trying to get out from needing 40, and they were making the argument that there's 8 additional parts around the China. This is a completely different situation where we're in a residential neighborhood with no parking for that business. So my opinion is the Louis should own their parking lot like most restaurants, and we should not buy it. And I absolutely think neighbors should have input. Neighbors have had input on this decision. They've made it very clear they don't want it. But for some reason, nobody's listening. And we come out of these meetings, we say we don't want it, and then it's at the next city council meeting as part of the plan. So if I'm elected, your input will be valued.
Excuse me. At the last meeting that was held about the Louise parking lot, it was overwhelmingly decided by the neighbors that they were in favor of the city buying Louise Parking Lot. I was at that meeting, I know that. And I would also then like to know what you think about the city buying the parking lot at the Catholic Church. Because that's one of the lots that the city is thinking of as well.
Well, okay, well, I'm sorry. I think there's, again, two different situations. If the Catholic Church wants to sell that lot, and it is their lot that pretty much is being used for city purposes almost exclusively, except during Mass. If the Catholic Church wants to sell that lot and the city's interested, I'm less opposed to that because that's not property that we're getting property taxes on now. So if you take the Louis lot, and you take it off our tax rolls, that affects our property tax, or commercial tax right now. So I don't see them as parallel situations.
What about the Maritime Center?
Maritime Center? Well, as I said earlier, I love the idea of the Maritime Center. I think one day it would be great to have a nice center like that. But I'll say this, I don't know why everyone thinks this isn't going to be a regional facility. It's a brand new facility. It's going to be way bigger with way more parking. It's going to be free. Why wouldn't boaters come here to launch their boats? Why won't we see traffic going all the way up to Bernie's or further? And when I asked this at the community meeting at Our Lady of Good Counsel, Councilor LaForest's answer was, we're not expecting any more traffic. And I don't think that's the answer. So.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just a little bit of history. First of all, the last meeting
Yeah,
held in August, when everybody's on vacation.
doesn't
There
matter.
were a lot of people
There were a
there.
lot of people here.
My parents and neighbors
Well,
were
if
not
I,
in favor of it. But
if I can jump right in, right? Because I went to the first couple of meetings and I would read in the paper how much it was different than the actual meeting was. So a lot of people that were opposed to it have given up because they know what's going through, whether they like it or not. So.
And let me give you a little bit of history. So